sent you I sent you an article to review from the journal, which is in your area of fictional settings and how
Oh, fun.
relate to
All right.
fictional settings.
Oh, I see it here. Awesome. Yeah, I'll take a look at this. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I expect Perry, but I wanted to tell everyone that Josh and I spoke, and he is having some health issues, so he's going to need to. I encouraged him to rest and do all the things to get better, so he'll be off for a little while.
Oh,
Uh,
and Perry said he sent an email to you and I, Karen, but it kind of showed up weird. I had to like triple check. He's not going to be around this afternoon. He didn't state
okay,
why. Yeah. Um,
okay.
but yeah, I don't know what happened when he sent it. It got sent to my junk actually, and I was like, I thought Perry sent me an email this morning. I wonder what that was about. And I was looking through my email and I couldn't find it.
Oh
But then
yeah, I
I
did.
just searched all my inboxes and I found it, but it wasn't in like my normal inbox. So he did send us a note mentioning he'd be out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I saw one that said like this email is sus. I think it's because it was from his Gmail or something, and
Yeah, I think so too.
yeah.
Mhm.
Um, so actually, Andreas, I'm glad you're here. I always have to, you're just like our adorable scientific brain guinea pig.
Something
We
like that.
use you for various things. I really want to pick your brain today in the lab meeting, Andreas, about
Great.
design for
Hmm.
the MTV study and get some input.
My favorite, my favorite part of the process.
Awesome. So before I forget, did Perry tell you guys about the AI paper getting accepted?
Yes. So
Super
major congrats. Hmm.
psyched about that. Yes, Perry worked very hard on that, and Josh and I were his little worker bees, buzzing away on the different parts of the project. But we wore down the reviewers, you could tell. One of them was kind of semi-snarky the first round, and then by the time we just did every single thing they asked for, he was like, okay, uncle, just go for it. And Andrew, I wanted to ask you something. So we got Josh and Perry and I got to revise and resubmit on a paper at um, Personality and Social Psychology Compass, and I want to use the articles that you were looking for. I'm sorry to be annoying, but Josh sent you an invitation to his Zotero, but now Josh is not going to be with us for a little while. Could I ask you to put them into the big lab Zotero, please?
Of course, no problem.
Thank you. I want to basically their biggest critique was, is there enough published research to write a lit review? So I'm just gonna uh, try to sell that, and we have 6 weeks to do that in. But at first, honestly, I was just kind of like, "Meh, this reviewer or this editor doesn't really like this paper," and then I thought, yes, but so what? That it's worth it to me to give it a shot, and because in the difficult world of publishing, a yes, even a yes without enthusiasm is better than a no. So, I think it's good to, it's not about that person anyway, it's about who might read it once it comes out. So I want to just go through those steps. Thank you for that, Andrew. So, uh, Josh told me, and I'm 0% surprised that Perry broke the news to y'all that the MTV Study One didn't, our hypotheses were not supported. And I'm sure he did the best job any of us could do. I told the Josh if it had been me, I would have probably written a silly TV theme song with the news. Guess what? There's ups and downs in life. This part's the down part. No, but so I do want to, I'm just getting my head back in the game here, but I do want to reach out to the people at Cloud Research and just present the data a little bit and say, do you think, given these results, they're a sign of low quality participants? Um, to me, the sign is the fact that we ask people to pick something that they didn't have strong feelings about, and then they ended up reporting having feelings for it, which could be they're not paying attention, but it could also be they were surprised that they had feelings for those songs. Um, so I do want to do that. Before I tell more about other things that I'm thinking about that, first of all, I do think we can write up that study, and in a paper like this, you could take the reader through the steps of we did this and this is what happened. And then next we adjusted based on what happened in that first study to try to fix those problems. So help me out here, guys. I'm going to give Andreas, I know you've heard about it a bunch of times anyway, but the design that we used for study one. So we did two pilots, and we did a pilot of volunteer people from Facebook, and we used this general idea where there's 25 top TV theme songs from most of them from past decades, and the people had to be at least 30 to participate. And we had them pick ones that they thought would give them feelings and ones that they thought they did not feel strongly about. In the pilot, we worded it slightly different, like ones you don't know and ones that give you the feels. And in the pilot, both the volunteer pilot and the cloud research pilot, we were able to show that the songs were more or less nostalgic in the directed in the directions predicted, but the volunteers were much better, and the volunteers gave a lot more detailed comments in the open-ended questions. So then we did basically the same thing, but we added our two outcome measures, which are self-continuity and social connectedness, just brief surveys. And this time we jiggered a few things. We did ask them, oh no, we did put them in a control group and an experimental group. The experimental group were asked to pick songs that gave them the feels, and the control group songs that did not give them the feels from the same list. And what ended up happening was that there was not a difference between the experimental and control groups on the outcomes. But if you run the correlations, if you said the songs you heard gave you the feels, then you did have more of the DVs. So you did have higher social connectedness and higher self-continuity. So if you're getting more feelings, you're getting more of the outcomes, but the trying to put them in those two groups didn't seem to actually work. They were like the same-ish on
Yeah, that could also be really just an artifact. It could be a ceiling effect, right?
mhm,
Where because you picked 25 presumably well-known songs, it, you might subjectively be like, I like MASH more than I like the Brady Bunch, but it could just be that, but that still elicited the baseline feelings that you guys were trying to capture. And so it's just like you're essentially triggering nostalgia for everyone. So yeah, there was no significant difference, but then the correlation would be there that it was a little bit stronger. That's also the difference in this is probably mostly for the students to think about, but this is one of the big things when you're thinking about statistical analyses, the difference between comparing means or comparing a correlation, which is essentially a slope, right? And we're seeing the slope is tilted higher for the people who are reporting strong feelings than not. But is the difference between those slopes, which is the difference of the means, is that significant? And that's a little bit of a different thing. And I would also, uh, I'd really like to see what the numbers were, because if it was a
mm,
ceiling effect and there's a pretty good power, and if your p-values like kind of close to 0.05, then I think you start to have a conversation about, yeah, was it just an artifact of, in this case, the design, which would be the argument for a study two, right, of doing something maybe a little bit different. Sorry to kind of interrupt, but I really kind of wanted to make that point that that seems to be that the correlation. As soon as you said that, my light bulb went off, and I was like, that makes a lot of sense. And in fact, if the manipulation of the IV is just working on everybody, then yeah, you're not going to see a significant difference. you might only see, especially if that correlation, I don't know how strong it was, but if it
And we
wasn't,
can pull up the data here in a bit too.
yeah, if it's not a super big one, then it wasn't big enough to see a huge effect in something, again, especially a ceiling effect. The other big tell would be the standard deviation of that means comparison test that you did. And of the means of the two groups, that standard deviation super small. Again, for students in here, that's a tell to you that you weren't getting a lot of range in the score distribution on that measurement item. So in this case, I'd be interested in the nostalgia scores and looking at the means, going, are the means pretty high generally for how you are scoring this scale? And then is that standard deviation like a pretty small number? If it's a pretty small number, then that means everyone's reporting it pretty high, which seems to mean that you're eliciting nostalgic feelings out of both groups. So you probably don't even want to undersell yourself and be like, it didn't work. It actually worked like way better than you were imagining it was. We've
Yeah,
got to be really sensitive about how we assess for this thing, for this construct. So
that is
that'd be another potential explanation of what's happening.
that is super helpful. When I read it, what the way my brain explains it is, I think the effect is actually there. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
the manipulation didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
As that
Mm-hmm.
correlation is telling you that it is there.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I get Perry's point about if we said pick something that doesn't give you the feels, and then you pick something and then you say, does this give you the feels? And you're like, yes. But then I know Angel and I, for instance, we both did that. Like I just said Hawaii 5-0. No, I know that I know it, but still when I heard it, I was like, yeah. And I picked it as being,
Exactly.
not that,
Mm-hmm.
that it's not like I start to weep when I hear Hawaii 5-0 or anything, but it's just like still, it reminds me of the 70s and the
Yeah.
vibe and all of that
Yeah.
good stuff. Okay, so here's some stuff to throw out. We can all converse about
Mm-hmm.
this. So I don't know which one of these to start with. Some things that I thought of. Move back to us. So two things. One, assigning them songs rather than letting them choose, because even though I love choice, I'm all about choice. In this particular case, it's not working, perhaps because people don't know that those songs are gonna evoke more than they thought. And perhaps they're just being casual about it or something. But so maybe pick some of the look at the counts and see which ones were picked the most and just send them two of the ones that were picked the most for the experimental. And for the control, we want something not likely to evoke feelings, but would still be comparable. So one would think it should be a TV theme song, and that
But like
don't
new,
know
like
it.
from the last 5 years
Could
versus.
do new, could do different country, could do shows that bombed, like unknown or random pilots that were seen by no one, or
Yeah.
whatever. It's hard because even that they could have a wonderful theme song. It's just like, you know, we did the pilots the way we did the pilots, and we're not going to redo the pilots because there's only so much money in the old fielding bank account here. So those are options. This, let's see what you think of this. If you did the same design, but you said that you were going to use their reported amount of feels as a correlate, not a correlate, a factor in the model or a covariate or something, would that do what we want or not? I can't figure it out because it might just suck all the variance out of there and then nothing remains.
Yeah, I mean that would be something to test. That would be the concern, would be of course sucking out the variance. Again, the standard deviations on the metrics you do have might be a tell of to see do you have a wiggle room to suck out some variance. If you do,
Mhm.
then modeling it, maybe the answer is just modeling it out as opposed to doing it. Um, And then I really do think, I would really probably strongly advocate just listening to these conversations before for a truly, as best as you could, a neutral control condition.
Mhm.
Because my impression from sitting here and listening to really smart people explain this thing to me that I'd never thought about before in nostalgia is that I don't think there's some aspect of self-volition to it, but there's a lot of it that's not. Like you're
Mhm.
not necessarily, sometimes people, nostalgic proness, I'm seeking out that particular um, feeling, right? Or psychological experience more than other people. That makes sense to me, but like that notion that like especially I think as you get older, nostalgia is like triggered within you. Like you're like, oh, I'm experiencing this. And sometimes it's in a lot of times it's in moments you don't expect, right? Or from things that you don't necessarily expect. I don't think that there's good theoretical rationale for only the things that you're nostalgic for are gonna carry that sensation.
Mhm.
Um, Maybe I've missed or I'm just ignorant to research that demonstrates that, but that would be my advocacy for if you did it again to do a more true, and one thing you could do would be to, yeah, have some sort of you could even almost have people either you would just pick the songs and you could even just like randomly select from that list of 25 songs for the
Mhm.
experimental condition. And then you could have another condition where it was 25 newer songs or songs from shows that bombed or something like that.
Yeah.
And that'd be the control. And then it would just be random for everyone kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Or um, you just or maybe they self select a song from they're just like here's a list of songs pick one and that's just the paradigm or you impose it you pick something that's generally popular enough using the top answers I think is a good one and then yeah having a true neutral of something that just isn't old enough to elicit nostalgia or yeah isn't popular so no one's going to have developed those feelings I think I mean, some would probably argue that you probably want this. This would be a case for like a multi-condition study where you had both, right? Where you had three,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
One that should evoke a nostalgia in a lot of people, one that should evoke a nostalgia, maybe not that much, or maybe people aren't aware of it, and then one like true neutral
Mhm.
condition. But I would get wanting to restrict yourselves to two conditions. So that would be definitely what I
Yeah.
would pitch if I were in your shoes.
Oh, what do you think about a no treatment control?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. That would be another one where, or is there any part of the theory or the hypothesis that it's the song's gonna elicit more than say like a clip or a news article about or like a news like a news segment about that show like if you showed people I don't know a little thing that about the making of MASH versus
Mhm.
listening to the theme song and does that elicit more emotion that would be another route that
That's
maybe you could go
that's
um
a really interesting point about
mhm.
the clip, I think. I mean, I guess at that point you would have to really have some good reasoning around what clip you chose because
Yeah,
it's like the song is so emblematic of the whole thing because it plays before every episode. But if you were to find, I don't know, feel like a well-known or like popular clip might just shoot you in the foot and you wouldn't see any effect. But if you could somehow show that there's a difference between what happens in the song that reminds you symbolically of the whole show versus an actual clip of the show, that would be so fascinating.
yeah,
And just
I'd be
sitting here
afraid
thinking
that
it,
that one would also evoke nostalgia. Probably not as much because you've got the
yeah,
feelings that come straight from music. But
yeah.
I'd kind of lean toward a neutral theme song,
yeah.
like, it hasn't been around enough to specifically make you feel nostalgic, or is not like something people love that just came out or something like that.
We still do have the British shows as well.
Yeah.
That
It was
too an American sample yeah
You
kind of
think that
when
one's
you
okay, Andreas, the British thing? Would that
I
work?
think that that would be a as logical of a decision that you could make. I think, I mean, it would largely depend on the show, right? Some things are probably like Doctor Who. Like, I think if you just trigger that from within people, whether or not they saw the 1980s version or not, probably is going to elicit something. But if you pick something truly neutral and truly unknown, like,
Mm.
not that popular in the United States, theoretically, that's as good of a neutral as you could pick. Um, I would still, I'm thinking if I were a reviewer, I would probably say something about it. And my lean would be, I think you'd probably make a better validity argument if you picked a new song versus an old song.
Mhm.
But again, I think that really depends on how you're kind of operationalizing this and what you're trying to demonstrate within this effect. I think either one of those taps into sort of some of the same stuff and some different aspects of it too. And it's sort of just, what do you think makes the most sense following the design you've already done and adding to it?
You think unknown-ish, much less known song from the same type of eras would be?
And that would be another one, right? If the main mechanism that you're thinking of, so I guess that would be my thought, would be, what's the mechanism here?
Mhm.
Is it time? Is it evoking a sense of time and a sense of place? If it's just that, I could maybe see a potential effect where it doesn't matter if it's a show that nobody's heard of, just the
Mm.
act of taking someone back there and evoking those emotions, right, is going to inflate the score on on this particular metric that you're using, um, versus something newer wouldn't have that affordance. But if you're making the argument that no, there's specific properties about something that you identify with, that's where the nostalgia is coming from. Then I think it would be important to do what you're saying, which would be a
Mhm.
neutral song that nobody knows of from that time frame compared to something that everybody would know.
And we could pick two of these if we're going to try to do three categories.
Yeah.
So it's multifaceted. So familiarity, I think, is a strong part of it. Repetition leads to familiarity. Um, Personal memories, era nostalgia.
Did the
So,
songs
mm,
have any other relevant? So like Hawaii Five was a great example where it's like that song, like I know that song and I've never watched Hawaii Five O. Like
yeah,
it's like a song, but
yeah.
other shows maybe it is more attached to the show. And so making sure that you're picking something that's like, no, it's evoking this thing. There's really no likely reason that somebody else would it would elicit something else in someone else. Like again, Hawaii Five O would maybe be an example of, oh, I didn't remember that this is actually what that song was. So
Yeah.
I actually do have a lot of feelings about the song, kind of what you were talking about already. That
Yeah,
makes
because
sense to
I
me.
didn't
That
watch the show either, even though
yeah,
it's associated in my head with the 70s. But there was a film they did not
yeah.
that long
There's a
ago.
film. There's the reboot show, right? Like I can't remember some alt rock band in the mid 2000 in the early 2000s did a cover of it that kind of got some
Yeah.
traction. Yeah, it kind of exists outside of itself. And so that would be something that I would also take in consideration when you're thinking about specific songs versus other songs really are just embedded in the context of the show.
I think there's so many different things that cause feelings that it's always going to be like aggression low and high. It's not going to be
Yep.
none and
Mm-hmm.
all or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We
Well,
like
and
in Craig's Lab, we always say low aggression and high aggression, like
Yep.
in a game or something, because there's usually not none.
No.
Um, and there's just multiple reasons to feel the feels. We have two different measures. We have just asking you straight on, do you feel nostalgic here? Nostalgic specifically, but then we have the emotions that make that up, like happy, bittersweet, all those things. You know, as it's getting reviews like this, getting reviews, period. It's always like this. You think, dang it, I don't want that response. And then you think, uh, that's good because what we're actually doing is science here and we're exploring things and we learn something. Really, I'm not just saying that like, oh, it's so great how we learned something. But no, really, we did learn something from those data. And when we continue to hone the design because of that, then we'll learn more. So if we have like 3 conditions in this next go around, we're comparing multiple things. But I think in the discussion, we're gonna have to go back and say, but here's some of the many things that evoke emotions and even could evoke nostalgia, even if you weren't there, because we know that I can have nostalgia from the 50s, even though I was not there. It's just the idea of the 50s, and things my mom told me about the 50s, or, things in movies about the 50s. So, it's, and emotions are so powerful. So, um, yeah, it's a bummer because you spend money and you do the time and then you think, oh no, but, but I think it's our job to try to figure out now what's a reasonable, good thing to do for the next step, and what will be a strong comparison, and see what we can learn from there. I keep thinking when we're talking about controls that aren't that are literally okay, but they don't like evoke anything. I don't know why, but in grad school, we had to have people reading 2 different articles, and one was, like, controversial, but it was from Consumer Reports, and the control group was them reading a Consumer Reports article about bread. And we're always like, "Ugh, they're in there
That's
reading about
emotional for
bread."
me.
So we need our version of a bread
Exactly, of
article here.
bread.
A song about bread.
Mm.
Or like
Okay.
the sting from like ABC News or something, right? Like I don't think that that's necessarily changed, but that's not necessarily going to trigger a nostalgic response. It's going to trigger like oh, I know what that is. Like that's like a thing that I'm aware of and I keep track of or something like that.
Yeah.
That would be another way to maybe think about it too. Or a song of a show that how far old does the show have to be is the question, but if a show still exists, so like the SNL like opening like music, they do the thing with the where they say all the performers or whatever. But it's like would that evoke nostalgia or maybe it doesn't. It's just like, oh yeah, I know what that thing is. Um, because it's something that's persisted now for 30, 40 years. So 50 years, I guess. Or
Yeah.
50 seasons. So that would be another way to think about it too, potentially. But again, I think that's the hard part about doing something that nobody's ever done before. There are a lot of considerations, and part of it is, as you said, Karen, learning about operationalizing it and trying to isolate these components in a lab setting. And you're the first research team that's really kind of doing this. So
Yeah.
of course, you're running into these challenges, and um, all you can do is try to put a series of studies together that tries to best do it and then present the top-down view and hope it propels the research forward.
Yeah, and now we know I was laughing because one of the big team that does all this music nostalgia stuff just picked a song and I was like, random. Like, okay, they just picked one song for everybody. Like, how do we know that? Yeah, but it worked. So like they will listen to, Gilligan's Island or whatever it is. Okay, guys on the team, Andres, we're just taking you along for the ride here. Andres, I think you're an author by now.
If you use any of my ideas, then but
Definitely.
I think if it just if we go with the question, give me the feels, then we've got to consider all of the way we're specifically looking at nostalgia, but there are other ways that people might get feels, so more modern songs and all the rest of it. So we really have to kind of strip the feels out or strip the possibility of feels out of those songs. So either, make them as you, or just, we have to strip out that potential for feels. Is kind of, which is the bit that Andreas said. If we were to do new, you could still have feels for a new one because you're sitting there next to your partner right now, and I love it. And we're looking for nostalgia, but the question simply asks, does it give you the feels? So we might accidentally trigger modern feels, and they'll respond to it, and that kind of contorts the experiment. What we really want to do is place it in the past. So to that point of either songs that are contemporaneous in the past but bombed or
Bad
not
songs.
recognizable. They've got to be back, you know what I mean? They've got to kind of be in that's my kind of what I take from what Andres was saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another question I have for you all would be thinking about the time, well, like when in the study was, right, you did the stimulus and then are you immediately prompting them with these questions? It maybe also would make sense to do some sort of filler task or something in between, because then you could make the argument that, well, if the feelings that are evoked are stronger, they should maybe last longer. If you immediately prompt people with this question, did that song make you nostalgic? And they're like, oh yeah, it reminded me of this thing. But if you play them the song, make them do something or fill out other parts of the survey that have nothing to do with what you're trying to measure, then you ask them those questions. Well, now they have to reappraise and they have to go back, and they're not just in the immediate moment of the emotion, and they're reflecting on the emotion that was elicited, which would be a little different. So that would maybe be another consideration to have, would be how do you set up that when they do it, but it might be that you want that immediate reaction, which is, then you're doing the right thing in that case. So that'd be another thing to think about too.
That is what I was going for, make it right after there, because we want the
Yeah.
biggest bang. But Ross, to what you were saying, if we assign the songs, then we won't ask them about the feels at the beginning.
Yeah,
So
right.
we'll still ask them, let's see, do we
Yeah,
ask them?
because I think the challenge that we may have triggered is that every song on that list was popular. It came from they were all nostalgic. They came from a list. They were top tier. So even if you don't recognize them, we know they came from a category which will trigger lots of people. So what we really need to do is probably find some songs that are not in any of those lists and are really just obscure, either physically obscure from a different country or obscure because no one's heard them because they're bombs or whatever, which would be fun. We'll have fun. That's not hard to find theme tunes for shows that bombed.
Dud shows with a dud song. We don't want a dud show, the fantastic song. But yeah, so we don't ask them at the beginning about the feels. We don't ask them to choose. We did ask them to choose the first time. We don't ask them to choose. We've asked them now 3 times to choose. Now we're going to do a different thing and just give it to them, whether it's any of those things Andreas whenever, like pick one from the 25 or pick one from the top 10 or pick ones that, like I mentioned, were the top ones that people selected on their own. And then randomly pick from 2, 3 songs, whatever that we picked that are, I think they should be not top shows from the era. So they could be bombs, they could be from the era. We will decide this, or are just like listen to the British ones or listen to they could be a mix. Anyway, figure out and not have them be compelling songs or songs with a motif that is evocative of the era in some way. I don't know if we could get away with instrumental. Some of them are instrumental in our list, I think. But we don't want to confound it where everything's instrumental in one and not in the other. So
Yeah, I had the same thought because sometimes the words can be triggering, even in a bad song. There's plenty of catchy songs that have horrifying lyrics.
right.
So I did go to that idea of instrumental and then talked myself out of it because we're trying to balance with,
But
the ones that are not control
Right.
songs.
it would be, I mean, interesting if you had a little more money and you could afford to. So some of the songs we've got from overseas sound like they have the sort of lyrics that you might expect from an American show, but they're not. No one's ever heard them. It's all family, let's come together, all of that. But no one's ever heard them before in theory. So it would be interesting to see whether they are as effective as the ones you recognize. Are the lyrics as effective as the ones you've heard So is the lyrics making a difference? But that would just confound this, I think. So we might even need to steer away from, do they sound like they might be a show you might have heard?
Or have a family theme, because so much of our nostalgia findings are social
Yeah,
context.
it's quite interesting. There's a lot of
Yeah.
layers.
I I like the idea of continuing with a method that has some ability to check. You know, on this one, we were able to say, okay, we asked them to choose songs that weren't familiar, and they said that they were familiar. So obviously, that raised a flag immediately. We're not going through all this and being like, oh, wait, no, this doesn't work. So doing something similar, like the European songs that sound somewhat similar, you could just literally ask, have you ever heard this song before? After you collect the data. And if yes, then it's like, okay, well, then we'll separate you over here. And
Yeah, we could do familiar. We could ask them about the feels again. We could even ask them, how good of a song do you think this is, or something like that.
mm,
Some general like quality
did you enjoy
rating.
it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I actually really like that idea. You can randomly assign them a song, and then you can ask that question, and then yeah, you can further refine the comparison groups when you do that. There's no rule about that as long as you're, acknowledging that that's how you did it, because you would still be doing a true manipulation, but then you want this cross-sectional analysis too of this familiarity effect that is a little bit harder to manipulate. So if you have enough people where you could do a comparison on that front, well, then that's a great. That gives you more power to answer some of these other questions.
And
Yeah,
just
and also it gives reviewers a chance to say, well, you've got those data. Could
Yeah.
you rerun them this way or rerun them that
Yep.
way, rather than just not having the data?
Yep.
just I'm throwing it out there, and it may have been discussed elsewhere, but most title sequences are 30 seconds long, but we're including clips that go beyond that. If we were to restrict it back to the 30 seconds, we could do more. We could do more, and because at the moment one of the issues is that if they listen to all of the clips, it takes a length of time which might be boring to them, or they might tune out. But if we shorten the clips back down to 30 seconds each, which is the bit that you would have heard if you watched the show, you might be able to include more clips in that. Have you heard this? Do you like it? Kind of thing.
I'm for like standardizing them, like putting it down. Maybe you can do like a fade up, fade down, and like you're gonna hear
Yeah.
30 seconds of this thing. And Stephen and I were talking about this, right? Like that don't let them go on until
Mm.
the 30 seconds
Mm.
has passed. Because that's not too much to ask for them to wait 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're not getting enough of the stimulus, you can lock the next button for 30 seconds of the clip,
Mm.
or it must reach this. I mean, they
Yeah.
could, if they knew that that was part of the coding, they could just kind of drag the ticker, but that at least solves that. I mean, it doesn't solve if they have to listen to if they end up listening to 5 minutes of songs, that's a lot of survey time you may be paying for, but that's a different
Yeah, I'd
issue.
we still have to ask them the questions after each song, so
Mm.
it will reduce the time if we say play two songs for them and ask them the questions after each song to that are supposed to be nostalgic, and two that we think will be lower in nostalgia for most people. So folks, Stephen and folks on the team about with the songs, if y'all could discuss which ones like that it's a fair comparison, that we can make this argument to the reviewers, all the things that we've talked about here. But we don't want to pick an especially amazing song that will just immediately evoke strong feelings in anyone, no matter if they've heard it. Just a reasonable comparison that is less likely to be nostalgic specifically for them.
Yeah, if we're curating it anyway, we could take out songs like Law and Order that have like a meme quality,
Mm.
that dun dun, like
Dun,
that
dun, dun,
is used
dun.
all over media now, so
Mhm.
it's not just nostalgia, it's got all this like other viral stuff on it.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that's in scope now, I think that we could, within reason and defensively, come up with a manipulation that is more effective that way. in the way that we need.
Yeah, and it's okay if the song is not nostalgic for them, but it can evoke some emotions, like I say. But I think it'd be better to avoid songs that are specifically like, this has a huge 70s vibe, or this is just a very emotion-inducing song, or what have you.
How many songs do you want to select?
I'd like to play them too, from each nostalgic, high nostalgic and low nostalgic. So all we'd have to have is two,
Because they're assigned, right?
because they're assigned, right? So we could just pick two for each of them, or we could do the things where, I think it's fine if you just do the same ones for the low nostalgic. I think that's fine. But if you want to randomize the top 10 or randomize the top 5 that people actually picked in our pilots, we got plenty of data, and we've got 3 studies of data now for what everyone picked. So we could certainly just take the top, whatever,
Yeah, I was
5,
gonna say,
randomize
I
them.
mean, it's 25 songs, but we have so much data now from so many different people of what songs they found nostalgic. I wonder if there's some trend there.
I'm sure there is. We've looked at some of those numbers, but if we just dump it all together and count them up and find out what are the, whatever, top half dozen songs, and just have them that way, if you randomly pick 2 of them, you're going to get a variety of things. Some people will have a little bit lower nostalgic experience and others higher because we picked it. Um, everything always changes a little. They didn't pick it themselves, so that is a factor. Choice, I'm sure, is a factor. But then again, just sort of without all the preamble, just hearing it, could still have an effect, like the effect I felt when, even though I just said that I don't hardly know it, I hear Hawaii Five-O and I'm like, oh yeah. Oh, that's good.
Well, we've previously isolated some international ones which are just sitting. So I'm happy to send those around or put a set of links, and people could have a listen and at the very least discard them. They might say, "Oh my goodness, this is too familiar. It sounds like I might get it." So it might just be a way to discard that and push that out, and then we go to a different strategy, which is to choose bombs, try and
Mhm.
find bombs, which I'm quite happy to look for. It's not hard to find some bombs. So I'm quite happy to source that and maybe just put it into an email and say, look, listen to these tracks. And next time, come back with an opinion about, do any of these songs give you the feels? And if so, which is the least? That
Yeah.
might give us, some discussion points at the next, or give the people, you and Perry and Josh discussion points to help make, isolate some of those choices.
Yeah. I mean, and we'll think about the story too. Like, is the story that they were hits of the 70s, 80s, whatever, in England, but that
Mm,
we
yeah.
specifically chose them, like considering all things, like, are they things that people can watch all the time right now? Like,
Mm.
are they things that people tend to watch right now? Some things just kind of fall, and you don't have them on a streaming service or something. So you're not, it's not like we all know, like, tons of people are watching Doctor Who from 1960, whatever. But they're not watching some of those. Like, the number of people who would be made nostalgic by, like, Are You Being Served or whatever, that was on the list. I don't even know what the EastEnders theme is. You always hear about EastEnders or Coronation Street. I don't know what their theme songs are like, but I know they're hugely popular.
Them, Karen, they're mournful.
Oh, are they?
It's British. Coronation Street is the sort of thing you'd hear at a funeral. It's just
I
um
like it.
yeah.
I can't wait to get to the
Andrew and
show
I were
part.
chatting about the postage. He's made a point about potentially faking a theme tune using AI. Andrew, do you want to talk a little bit about what you suggested?
I was just bugging Ross to clarify the methods because I'm a little bit late to catching up. But there's an app called Pseudo AI that can generate music that isn't technically real. So I was just curious if that was something that's, I mean, it sounds like it has to be real music anyway, but can nostalgia be triggered by a song that isn't actually real, despite being able to generate those? Like, we could put in any prompt you want, theme song from whatever decade. It's like, it's not a real thing, but it might still trigger nostalgia. I was just brainstorming to see if that was something that came up.
Yeah, we have talked about AI songs, and I think there's merit in the idea. It could be one of multiple controls. It's just that, yeah, if it's trying to, like, make me a new song like Fresh Prince, or something like that, then maybe it's fun or evocative of a generation too.
Mhm.
I think the
It's
part
hard.
of the trouble is that there's so many different types of nostalgia, or maybe a different way to say that is nostalgia is so complex. I mean, just in the bit of research I've done, there's personal nostalgia that you have a personal connection to. There's historical nostalgia, which is almost like a secondary effect
Mhm.
from people that you know, like your father's favorite TV show you never watched, but it's so nostalgic because it makes you remember him. But then there's also media nostalgia, which is you have nostalgia for some sort of media, or mediated nostalgia, which you don't have nostalgia for that media, but it elicits the nostalgia nonetheless. Um, it's all kind of like this twisty web of personal meaning, which is what makes it so interesting. But I do think it poses this challenge that we're facing now of like, well, how do we get to this one thing that we're looking for without while controlling for these other things? And
Yeah.
I feel like AI songs would have a similar thing. It's literally trained on the songs that you have nostalgia for. So
Mhm.
it may
Mhm.
not it may not necessarily be something that you've heard before, but if it sounds like it, that may be all you need to feel that nostalgia. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a condition later where we say the AI songs are as good as, like,
Yeah, like Perry's research.
yeah, exactly, that they think
It'd
it's
definitely be
creative.
interesting. Yeah.
I've asked AI to take a song like, I did for my friend Erica Shara, a silly rap song for, the third person effect is TPP, and I had them sing, "Are you down with OPP?" And yes, I know what it means. And it was like, it had a whole thing. I was like, it was really good. So it was about the third person. Anyway, nerd humor. But I think for this one, we do those things that we were talking about. We could have a third condition. We could have a no treatment control, or uh, you know, even instrumental music that's not TV themes, or I mean, I don't really love that one. I have some music, I'd have to really dig it up, but elevator music is basically what I'm thinking of, that was used
Mhm.
in a
Yeah,
study.
royalty free, yeah, like not, instrumentals or something like that, or um a jazz quartet from 1960 that no one's ever heard of, something like
Lee
that.
would love that. Yeah, so yeah, some kind of elevator, because nobody gets in the elevator with the old music and is like, yes, I'm just feeling the feels here.
My favorite's the elevator music where it's like a cover of like a pop song, and you're like,
Yeah, that's
wait
nice.
a second, is this Sabrina Carpenter?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know?
we could do elevator music.
If you got a second, I'll play you Coronation Street.
Yeah.
This will give you a kind of a hint of what is the longest running show in England.
Can you share your computer audio under more?
You getting it? No.
I hear it, but it's a little garbly.
Yeah, Zoom will filter out the background noise, or it'll try to.
It's okay. I'll where is it? Yeah.
Yeah, if you
Yeah.
go to more, the ellipsis, and then it'll say share computer. Oh yeah, exactly. Share computer audio.
Yeah. So um
You have to click, there's a checkbox when you originally click share.
yeah.
So you may have to unshare and then try to share again and click the checkbox that says share audio.
Let me try. Okay, I'll try and do that. You can carry on. Let me.
And
Yeah,
don't make it very easy.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Yep.
okay.
back there.
There we go. Okay, now.
This song actually does give me the feels. But that's okay, because I would report that. We can put that right in the analysis. But yeah, I mean, for most people, I'm guessing, how do I know? But most people, I'm guessing. How did you all feel about that?
Does it give
It
you the
reminded
feels?
me of it reminded me of like a period in time.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Well said. Yes.
So that's been running for 40 years now. Exactly the same theme, exactly the same titles for 40 years. So, there might anyone with Brit parents or Brit heritage might recognize it, but it's not a song that you would as an American. Although it's a little bit, is it maybe does it evoke kind of a cheersy sort of that mournful, I don't know. Anyway,
To
so
me, it
those are
kind of just
that
says old timey, like old
yeah.
timey, we're gonna be in the neighborhood.
Mm,
It almost had Mr. Rogers vibes, except Mr. Rogers has more of a
mm.
up positive swing. I don't know.
Oh, that cracks me up for some reason. Like you're going on your first date and they're like, you have Mr. Rogers vibe. Is that good?
That's kind of a compliment. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah. That would
The
be
way
a
you're
hard one to
changing
decipher.
shoes and everything.
yeah.
But I can see random strangers unknown to us forever. They'll be like, what is happening with this song? Whereas if you play something very famous, like some of the top 10, TV show themes, they the Brady Bunch or something, they will know what that is. I bet we'll be surprised if we change. This is kind of a radical change in their experience.
Mhm.
No selecting your own, and you're just hearing this thing, and probably you'll recognize the first one. We picked the most popular. Probably you won't recognize the second one. And yes, even though that to me has a slightly like just evocative of old days kind of feel, it's it wouldn't be as strong as something I am nostalgic for, like the Brady Bunch.
And
So
I
sorry, are we oh sorry, go ahead. I was just gonna ask, are we planning to choose like a list of 6 nostalgic songs and a list of 6 that we think may not be as nostalgic?
I think we can get away with fewer of the, I mean, ideally, sure, but if
It
it's
should be a
hard,
random
if
number
it,
for both.
yeah, but if it's, do you think this is okay, Andres? If it's hard to find 6 kind of neutral songs, do we need to try to have 6?
I think if it's 4 or 5 and 6, I think that's or maybe to Ross's point, maybe the total runtime is more important than the actual number of songs. We're exposing you to 2.5 minutes worth of nostalgic TV show songs or bland songs that you've never heard of before.
Yeah,
That might be the way to think about it too, if you can't find a good sort of equivalent for everything.
yeah. I love that. You're about to hear bland songs that you've never heard.
Yeah. Yeah, you're about
Ooh,
to hear.
good. That's a new Sirius XM channel, Bland XM.
Bland instead of blend.
That's Sirius XM Bland. Oh, yeah. So if you can try to balance it out and I don't know. I like the idea of either picking the top 6 from the list of Rolling Stone or the top 6 from our participants. They're probably correlated.
And I think that's good enough. I think especially if you're able to use study one, you're able to be like 95% of our respondents said that they had some sort of, were new of the song and had some memories and emotions about these songs, then, that's a pretty good argument to isolate it to just those in a follow-up study.
Yep. Well, I think this is good. We're making our decisions and we'll still be able to write up this study. I do think that readers can learn from it and we can learn from it. And you don't know when you roll the dice. I don't remember where I've read the stats. I used to think that something like, oh gosh, how many projects actually work, like support their hypotheses, it's supposed to be in the minority. I think I've been lucky, like more of mine than not have seemed to support the hypotheses, but
Yeah,
this
it's hard to
still,
know because of publication bias and
yeah,
significant effect bias in
yep.
publication bias. But Brian, or our program director, always he cites his anecdotal stat for interaction effects. He says, I have never in my entire career as a supervisor, as a researcher, as a reviewer, as an editor, seen a hypothesized three-way interaction work. Never, not once, even if everything else panned out.
I think he and Craig have to have a showdown though, because Craig's all
Yeah.
about the three-way
Yeah, Craig loves a three-way
interaction. He's like,
interaction.
well, I got a
Yeah,
whole
yeah, yeah,
portfolio
yeah,
for
yeah,
the three-way.
So, but just to show like how difficult, especially when we're loading multiple things, any, as you said earlier, Carrie, and any amount of variance that you're controlling for or removing or adding on, it just complicates things more. And people are fickle creatures, so it becomes harder and harder to detect effects, at that point. So. So it's also why significant testing as the only metric is flawed, but you all have taken 701A and have heard us rant about that.
Well, I think we're ready to jigger this around. I'll still try to put it on my agenda to reach out to the cloud research people. And we can also consider recruiting another way at some point, but yeah, also in good news, it doesn't take long at all to get the data once we
Yeah.
say, okay, this is ready, look through it, make sure we haven't, make sure we've caught any of the major boo-boos, then we can set it out there again into the world and see what our random citizens have to say about it.
Yeah, I will say I've been looking into the Connect in cloud research. Not only is their data supposed to be just better quality, they do a lot more on the front end. They have a ton of demographics that they ask everybody. So we could always just get that information from them. I mean, they have ways of filtering based on their demographics as well. Age, and they have so much stuff, consumer preferences. But
Yeah,
we
the
could
only reason
use
for not
that.
doing it was the money, but we can just go in there and put in our parameters and see how much it's going to cost. And then I would just, any like
It may
substantive
be
change, I would just tell Katie McGrath that since we got the grant to do
it will be more expensive. For my dissertation, it's like $700 with a similar amount of participants.
Yeah.
So
In this case, I think we should add on the third DV because it's, all those dependent measures are like 4 items or something. So we might as well just put that one on there. And so then we had said we're going to run multiple studies. I think the ones we're actually running are in reaction to the data that we get, which is cool. And she's really good about letting us do our thing. We want to inform her. We don't want to tell her like, oh yes, we did it all different without, telling her before the fact. That money you gave us? Well, we decided here's how we spent it. All right. Is there anything else we want to talk about the study?
I need to drop for another meeting.
Okay, well, this is good. We've made progress and it's good to see you all.
Yeah, it's nice to have you back, Karen. And
Yes.
again, this is always the most fun conversation to me.
Yep. And Andreas, you're definitely on the paper. By the way, you are writing the intro. No, I'm kidding.
Dun, dun, dun.
No, excited to be, and
Log off.
especially if you want to, sit down sometime, maybe we can pick one of these days. I do have a meeting during this time that I got to run to, but I can cancel it sometime and run through stats or something with you all if we want to do that.
That'd be
Just let
great.
me know.
Even next week or the week after, you let us know.
Okay,
we're
that sounds
flexible.
good. I'll put it down for next week.
Okay. Sounds good.
We have a draft of the poster. Should we have a look and get an opinion? Would that be handy? Steve, I know do you have to dash? You have to dash, don't you?
I do. Yeah, sorry. This came up last minute. I'm going to make Karen the host.
Thank you.
I had him put those comparison
Bye, guys.
contrast designs in the chat.
Yeah. So I'm just going to, based on the thing we looked at, and one that Perry showed us, of his. Wait a minute, that's not the. So this, yeah, this is the one from. Wait a minute, that's from Fielding. That's the one from Katie McGraw's. This is what they consider the new format. Karen, you'd be across the new format, which is the bold kind of in, invitational come and talk to me thing rather than the full wall of text.
Yeah, no, I think that looks nice.
Yeah. So there's a fantastic video, if you haven't seen it, by a guy called Mike Morrison, who is a PhD graduate of Iowa State, and he explains using media psychology why this attracts people to talk to the person standing there, which is what you want in a poster session. And he's quite cynical about poster sessions, but he explains why this attracts people. And then they have the, as you know, the QR code. So actually, I'll show you our version of that, which I had pulled up. Let me just. So, where are we? So this is a draft based on the things we had done. There's a couple of things that. There we go. I'm going to just center that. So we have our statement, and we've made it as short as we can. And the idea is that Jesse will probably be wearing a cowboy hat and talking to people. Let's be honest. And Steve will be there talking to people and trying to host it. We've got, these are taken from obviously from the study itself. This introduction, Karen, comes from your statement about the study. The methodology comes from bullets that Andrew's put together. The findings come from something Jesse's put together. Angel did some graphic here, which helps pull together what we are, the whole idea of memories and the words that occurred in the qualitative answers. Is that? Yep. And then we've got a little illustration, which is honestly just evocative, but we can move that out. But what are your impressions of this as a poster for Fielding?
No, I think it's good looking. I think Andrew's name should be on it too.
Yeah. Andrew, you need to just exactly that format. Just add it to me in chat in that format with your creds. We'll put that in there.
Sure.
I love that quote with the little claps after it. You can just hear it in
We
your
were
mind.
hoping you would. Ross came up with that. Wasn't that you, Ross?
Yeah. I just thought
That's great.
it's a little mnemonic. It's because
Something to remember us by.
we as media people should be able to trigger people to respond to media. That's what we should be able to do. And it'll be a whole lot of clinical psych students wandering past poor Stephen and maybe two other media psych posters. And we want to show what we do a little differently. So,
Well, I totally think that Stephen or Jesse or both can have like a little speaker and that you could be playing some of these.
Oh,
You know,
yes.
not to
Oh,
block out the conversation, but just like in the background, you know.
yeah, we were talking about that, Karen. That's a great idea because we were thinking someone suggested the QR codes can pull up different types of media. So the suggestion from the video had said you could pull up the actual survey, or in our case, song clips from the survey, something to add to the atmosphere media-wise. But I hadn't thought about doing it right in the conference. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I think, I mean, you know, like if it were online, the poster could trigger it or something, but just being there in person, somebody could have a little, you know, portable speaker or something, because again, we don't want to blast people where they can't hear the conversation, but they would be drawn to it, I would think, if, you know, it's playing music that's not normal for, you know, what posters usually do. No, Jessie, she could just be singing them.
She offered. You know her.
She can do that. She could dress up as a character.
Yeah, and the QR code we thought would connect to a larger paper that might have, she did a lot of work. I gotta hand it to her as far as results. She had bar graphs and things that don't really translate to, we don't have a lot of space. in a poster, but we thought with a QR code, if they engage people in talking, then anyone who wants to can just grab that and read about the study afterwards.
Yep. I think it looks great. I think we could put Andreas's name on there too. I just using
Yeah,
his brain
absolutely.
for free. You know, we gotta pay the piper here.
Yep.
Um, so no, I think it's really good, and I'm excited to be there and um see what people think. And yeah, I was really surprised when I got the data back because I feel like the effect is so strong and the data had been good, but I do think we're asking a certain question, we ask it a certain way, and we got what we got. And so I do think it's kind of a conversation about how science is asking a question and getting it answered. And I love when Alan Alda talks about science. He's got this center at Stony Brook University about communicating science. And he says that it's important for scientists to explain that you've been down some blind alleys. You've asked questions and you didn't find what you were, had predicted. And then you learn something from that and you moved on, because otherwise people just think, oh, scientists, they're just every question they ask, they get the answer they meant to get, and there's no surprises and there's no mystery to it. And it's just all, it just makes it seem more cold and distant. Um, there's
Oh,
some drama in the whole journey.
Karen, I wanted to tell you, when I generated the word cloud, you know how you can remove, they call them stop words, could be words that are contained in your question. So you take
Mm-hmm.
out all the and the and those basics, but then still I had to massage this thing. It felt like I didn't want to skew it or lead it, but I wanted to remove the word like year or years that aren't talking about emotions. And I was delighted. It was a surprise that this last one, the final word was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And that was your
Yeah.
word. And I said, okay, that's it. I'm done.
Yeah.
And that popped in. I said, that's it.
Yeah. And
I
when
mean, just
oh,
sorry.
please go ahead.
No, no, sorry, no. Just going on with what you were saying about going down dead ends. I almost wonder if we had sought to discover whether there was a difference between predicted familiarity or predicted nostalgia and incidental nostalgia. So nostalgia you don't think you're going to get. We would
Mm-hmm.
have almost conducted the same experiment
Yeah.
with a list of hit songs that we did. We could have said, do you feel you're going to feel nostalgic? Do you think you're not going to feel nostalgic? And then bingo, surprise, you do. So you would have almost be testing that hypothesis as well as the one we did if you gave people the hit songs that we gave them.
Yeah.
It's
And we should write that. I wrote a little note down when you said that we should put all of this in the paper, explain everything that we intended to do, what the surprises were. And
yeah.
I wish we had, time with the participants where we said, hey, how did it go with the ones you picked out? We did that here with us, so we could
Hmm.
include some of that. We don't want to do too much since we're the authors, but just the idea that uh, there's a difference between what you think you
Mm.
feel and what you do. That's what uh, Dan Gilbert, the social psychologist who's famous, he's on PBS shows and he's at Harvard and everything. He wrote a book called Stumbling on Happiness, and he calls it affective forecasting,
Mm.
forecasting how we'll feel. And he says that we are not good at affective forecasting. So I guess we should have heeded that and not ask them. We were trying to be good, like offer choice, but choice is a bit of a quagmire in this situation. So we did offer it. Now we're gonna hand it out and give them some surprises and then see the difference in their emotions.
Oh, also, Karen, I wanted to tell you that since you're going to be there, which is
Hmm.
great,
Hmm.
between the time we have this poster, I think it's due the 15th, our draft, and then it's November when you go, right?
Hmm.
Okay. So in that time, the QR code is going to point to what we're calling the handout. It's just a digital thing. But
Okay, good.
I sent the team your draft
Mm.
poster content draft to make sure that we incorporate what you wanted. So if you would like to scan the code at that time and see, since you also will be talking to people, make sure that our handout meets your approval.
Oh, I'm sure it will, but yeah, if you want to email it to me when you want my feedback, I'm happy to do that. I leave the 16th of November and return the 21st.
Okay.
Okay, so that was all that. I'll stop sharing. That was just for review.
Oh, it looks great. And yeah, and I won't just stand around the poster either because, you know, I'll circulate and stuff, and we'll see how it's set up. Sometimes it's set up where it's there for hours, like a whole day or something, and sometimes it's like a specific. Sometimes it's both, like a specific time that you're supposed to come see it, but then you can incidentally see it whenever you want.
Well, based on the ones that have been submitted, Steve showed us because he's got a board of the ones that have currently already been submitted, and they all use the wall of text. It looks like a very dense 19th century newspaper with just columns of stuff, and ours will absolutely stand out as, and it's an accepted format, but it will absolutely stand out amongst the others that are currently in draft.
Yes, Stephen showed us, I think it was Katie's posters with the old style and the new style. It was like night and day visually. And he showed one that's actually going to be at your conference. And it had miniaturized graphics that looked like brain scans. And I don't mean like 6 or 8, I mean like 25. And that wasn't covering the whole poster, that was up in a corner. And I thought, this is like, if you remember Karen, microfiche.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have conversations with people sometimes, and I'm like, you know what? Less is more, and they're like, no, it's not. Like, no, it really is. But you know, at the end of the day, it's their thing. So, but I've seen so many people just be like, oh, you know, and if you put like one visual, people will just go to that visual, they will look at it, and they will, maybe if they're social, they will talk to you about that or your title or something. But you know, just getting close and reading all that, especially if it's small.
I was telling the team when we had our meeting that I used to be on the film board with China, US versus China. I was on the US side, obviously. And the Chinese posters are very text heavy. So a movie poster. So you have to get up close and read paragraphs, plural, to understand what the movie's about. And they're talking about the theme and the symbolism. And our posters are like, you know, scary face.
Right, exactly.
Or an explosion and a shadow.
Right.
But
they're like, that's because Americans can't read.
But I think it's a great lesson because I come from advertising, and in advertising, it's about, can I get your attention and hold it just this long? And that's emotion generally.
Right. It you know, a big, powerful visual. And in fact, was it APA or it was something like a few years ago in the lab, I guess we were talking about how to make a poster like this. And it was like Psychi, the Honor Society. Hey, Jesse.
She's here. Hey.
Girls, how you doing? I'm in traffic in New York, sitting in my car, waiting an hour to get to the hotel. So I figured, let me jump on the lab and say hi to you guys.
So see, this is one of the fun things about Zooming and stuff. People could be in all kinds. You could be like, you know, in New York City, and here we are.
And here we are. I was in California this morning, in New York City this afternoon.
So you're there. You just got there to do your show?
I just got there now. Actually wound up running into Alyssa Milano in the airport, which was very interesting because she also played one of the enemies in our movie. So I'm finding this to be a very fun
Did you say Samantha?
I was like, Alyssa? And because like randomly when we were filming our movie 25 years ago, 30 years ago, and she was playing Amy Fisher, I'm my mom had gotten sick, and Amy took me and my brother under her wing for like a few days, and like took us to Kings games and like her house, and like slept over and like had this like make a wish moment. And so I haven't seen her since then. And so I'm like, "Hi, remember me?" And just be like, a moment. So yeah,
I
it
didn't
was
put
like
two and
that.
two together. Yes, she played the Amy Fisher character in that
Right.
movie. Wow.
And that's what I'm in New York to like talk about with like the other person who played Amy Fisher, Drew Barrymore. So it's just a very like universe. You're on the right path. They're all the first person I ran into a baggage claim with what. So
Yeah,
the bizarre life.
that's so well for her, and of course for you. You know, that she was that character, so she was thinking about the story and involved in it.
Right.
All that.
Right. So, you know, we're going to be talking all about that and the PhD adventure and, you know, research and all that. So I'm looking forward to it.
That's
I'm
so
going to
great.
shout out to the research lab. Like,
Thank you. I really like Drew Barrymore. I like all her like Adam Sandler buddy films and stuff.
Totally, yeah. So I'm looking forward to being on, and Tony Danza's going to be on the segment before mine, so I'm looking forward to it.
Oh my God. If I were there, I'd just be like, Mona, Angela. I couldn't help myself.
Oh, I love it. But no, because I figured we were talking about research poster today, so I just wanted to see and how that was going and if I can help and all that
It
stuff.
looks great.
You
I
see,
suggested we play some theme songs there, but of course you can grab a microphone and just start singing the theme songs.
My choreography ready. Got costume changes.
I like the theme song to Family, not Family Ties. Oh yeah, Family Ties. That's it, with Meredith Baxter Burney and Michael J. Fox. Yeah.
Okay, I'll track down the karaoke tracks.
So yeah, that is looking great, and we made a plan to move forward with the next version of the MTV study, in which we give them songs that we think will create a greater spread in emotions, and don't let them pick, but assign them, because we were just talking about that people don't always know what something will make them feel, and the social psychologist Dan Gilbert calls that affective forecasting, and he says we're not good at all at affective forecasting. Like, how will I feel when I get this new job or move to a new city or buy that treadmill, or whatever it is. So we ask them to do affective forecasting, and maybe part of the reason the control and experimental groups weren't that different is because they didn't realize that it was going to make them feel something. So folks are gonna try to look for some obscure, non-exciting theme songs that, won't make people just be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I love that.
Part of the journey.
Listen, I love it because when we got the news last week that like it wasn't turning out the way we hoped, I was like, oh no. But this seems like a good remedy.
Well, and Andreas made some good points. We picked his brain, and another way to look at it is it did turn out in that the assigned, like the experimental control, having them pick that did not work at all, but the correlation was there between feeling the emotions and then feeling the dependent measures, both of them. So that tells me the effect is there, but the putting them in groups part didn't work. So we're going to try to separate those groups out. But hopefully that will do something that way. But if that correlation is always there, if they're feeling it, then they're feeling the self-continuity, they're feeling the social connectedness. So in that sense, it did work. Like Andreas was saying, you don't even have to pitch it that way, like, oh, it's failed, but just, oh, that part didn't work, but this part did work. And now let's see if there's a way to assign them to conditions. And maybe there's not. Maybe it's always going to be like a correlational thing, but anyway, it's data and we will find out. All right. Is there anything else going on?
No, kind of cool.
All right. Well, Jessie B, break a leg over there.
Yes.
And we will see you all
Thank you, I will.
next
Can you see
time.
the skyline? Oh, that's a cemetery, but there's a skyline back there.
Yay, look at that.
No.
Thanks for including us on your trip.
I'm sorry, no, it was nice to pop in and see some familiar faces. And I'll be back with you next week. And Karen, I don't think I'm going to be in class tomorrow night. Sorry, Queen.
Jesse. Just because you have to go on the Drew Barrymore show. It's no excuse. No, it is an excuse.
Homework though, so we're
No,
good.
totally fine. You do the makeup version. You'll hear the video. It'll all be good.
Exactly.
Okay. Awesome.
Right.
Bye.
Okay, see you, peeps.